Okay, we're on Siman Nun Gimel, page 118 in the English. There's one there. Someone grab it quick. or you could just listen. Everyone could do. Steve does know it by heart. 118 in the bilingual. I don't even know who's the translator here. I don't know. Actually, he thanks a Rebbe of mine from Mevaseret, but I don't know who the translator is here. Okay, so one of the big themes in this Sefer we've been discussing many times is that it's maybe very shocking to many people, but there are two ways that Hashem runs the world. There's what's called Midas HaMishpat, the attribute of justice, and that's what we're familiar with. The attribute of justice is that Hashem rewards good deeds and punishes bad deeds. We're all familiar with that. We're all brought up with that concept. It's very well known to all of us. But there's another way that Hashem runs the world simultaneously, in addition to running the world with reward and punishment. Rabbi, you could join the table. Feel free. You can. You didn't get vaccinated.
They cut the vaccine.
Yeah. All the unvaccinated people should sit at the other table. It's such benad machavero in the shul. Hashem. Sprinkle cookies.
It used to be called a cold. But I know cold.
All right, we'll have you should give a COVID shir. I think you should give a COVID shir on Shabbos or something. Sure. It can't be. Yeah. So back to Midas HaMishpat. So there's reward and punishment. Then there's another way that Hashem runs the world. Simultaneously, as he's running it based on reward and punishment, he's running it with something called Hanhagas HaYichud, which means from Hashem's exaltedness, he is pushing the world to its final completion. As we've mentioned many times, the goal of the world is that everyone, all of humanity, should recognize that there's one God. There's one Hashem. That's going to happen when Mashiach comes. Then there's going to be Tchias HaMesim, resurrection of the dead, and Olam Haba. So Hashem is constantly pushing the world to that final conclusion. So with this, we can explain how many events happened. One could look at the world, and again, we're not giving specific examples and specific reasons why. You could always speculate, but we never know for sure. Anytime you hear someone say, the reason this happened is definitely because of this, you should be very suspicious, because as far as I know, there are no prophets that exist in the world right now. You can have rabbis say, this they do say, which my Rebbeim say also, is this tragedy happened. We know Hashem punishes us, mida keneged mida, meaning he punishes us in a way similar to the bad action that we did. So let's try to improve in this area, because perhaps we're being punished in this way. But if anyone gets up and says, God, I know God did this because of that, then you should be suspicious, I think. So Hashem runs the world with Midas HaMishpat and Midas HaHagas HaYichud, pushing the world to its final conclusion. So sometimes people often ask, how could this horrible tragedy happen? How could this happen? This doesn't seem to work with Hanhagas HaMishpat. It doesn't seem to work within the rules of reward and punishment, because such a thing should never have happened. But what these people don't realize is that there's another way that Hashem runs the world, called Hanhagas HaYichud, which means that it could be that this event had to happen. Let's say, just because it happened recently, let's say Corona. Right? I don't know why Corona happened. I'm not saying why Corona happened. I'm just saying there's a way to look at it. You could say Corona happened because the whole world needed to be punished. Or maybe people would say, this horrible thing happened and people didn't deserve it. So why did it happen? So it could be that there's something called what we're discussing, Hanhagas HaYichud, that Corona had to happen because it's pushing the world to its final conclusion. Perhaps people realized, right, part of realizing that Hashem is one is to realize that human beings really don't have any power. So it could be the reason Corona happened is because the whole world needs to understand that humans aren't in control, because we walk around thinking we're in control. We can stop anything, and then a little virus destroyed so many lives. So it could be that Hanhagas HaYichud showed us that we're really not powerful, and that's helping push the world to that conclusion. Again, I said perhaps. I didn't say that's for sure why it happened. But also, 1 second. Right, and this doesn't mean, I just want to add a caveat, this doesn't mean that when Hanhagas HaYichud is operating, that Hashem totally negates Hanhagas HaMishpat, because really a person could do something wrong, and really any time a person rebels against Hashem, really he deserves to be destroyed. How could you rebel against your Creator? How could you rebel against God? But Hashem made within the Midas HaMishpat that there's something called mercy. He's merciful. God just doesn't destroy people for every sin that they do. Now it could be with Hanhagas HaYichud that a person did something wrong. Now without the Hanhagas HaYichud could be that the mercy would come the attribute of mercy, and the person wouldn't get punished so severely. However, because of the Hanhagas HaYichud, that this punishment is necessary to push along the world to its final conclusion, it could be that Hashem suspends the attribute of mercy. So it's not that Hashem is just punishing people for no reason. God doesn't do that. They did something wrong. Usually they will get mercy. In this case, they didn't get mercy because it's necessary that the world gets pushed along to its final conclusion. Okay, so that's the topic we're discussing, and this is a very, very important topic to understand world events. Again, not the specifics, but just to have an open mind. And people who don't know this, often say, "Oh, how could God do this? How could God do that?" First of all, we should remember that we're human beings. We should be very humble. And
a lot of people who ask that, when you get to know them, you're like, I know exactly why you got that. You deserved it.
That's the Ramban says that actually. The Ramban says the first thing people say, how could this horrible thing befall this righteous person? The first thing the Ramban says is, how do you know that person's really righteous? Just because someone looks righteous on the outside, you don't know everything that they've done, everything that they thought, whatever it is. And then there's many other reasons why bad things happen to good people. But this is another way to look at things.
So if the person rebels against their parents, who ultimately created the person, right? That's thinking.
So what?
If the person rebels against their parents, for example,
right?
So to a non-religious person, they would think that this is the creation, right? The person was created by the parents, by the mother and father,
right?
So it's not really true, right? A person really gets created by the higher power, by the God.
Yeah, a person's created by Hashem, and it says also that there's three partners in a person: God and the mother and the father. But obviously, nothing gets started without Hashem. The fact that we're living now, this second, is because God is continually creating us. Right? It's not like God created the world and walked away. God is constantly putting His energy, whatever that means, into the world that allows us to be living. So every second, God is creating us, which is a phenomenal thing. You think about it, a person could be rebelling, blaspheming God, and the only reason he's able to do that is because God's willing him to live to do that at that moment, which is tremendous chesed of Hashem. Okay, so let's continue or start. Page 118. Amr HaNeshama, says the Neshama, Ata Nisyashati. Now I understand. Ki vade derech hatikun hakali michal ktivu yizbarach hu vade. For sure, God is making the world come to its final rectification. But Hashem deals with us according to our level and not according to His level. Last week we discussed a very philosophical thing, that if the world is Hashem is pushing the world to completion, so we said earlier that we can't understand God's perfection and completion. What does it mean God is perfect? We can't understand it. So we mentioned last week that when we say that Hashem is pushing the world to its perfection or its completion, that means according to our level of perfection, what humans or creations can achieve. We're never getting to the level of Hashem's perfection. That's something which is totally beyond our comprehension. Amar HaSeichel, says the intellect. I want to teach you something more specific about this topic. And every attribute that Hashem deals with us, He does it with two ways: what's apparent to us and what's hidden. What is apparent to us? What can we see and perceive? That's reward and punishment. Person, we see people that get rewarded based on good things they did and punished for bad things they did. Whether it's good or evil. And what's hidden is this deep wisdom that Hashem is constantly guiding with His attributes, to bring the world to its final rectification. So the midah that Hashem uses where He's bringing the world to its final rectification is hidden from us. You can't perceive it. This is the attribute. There is nothing that happens that the end result is not for Hashem to bring the world to its completion. Like it says, everything that's from heaven is good. Right? Whatever Hashem does is for the good. Well, it doesn't seem very good. These horrible things happen. No, because within this seemingly horrible thing that happened is a step closer to Hashem bringing the rectification of the world. That's how we can say that everything that Hashem does is for the good. It might not seem good, but in the scheme of world history, it is good. This is what the prophet says. Yoshev Abcha Usnachameni, return, your anger will be removed, and you will comfort me. In the future, after Mashiach comes, Hashem is going to show us His ways. How at the end of the day, after Mashiach comes, even the rebuke and the suffering that we incurred, we're going to see how it was only a preparation for good. And preparation for blessing. Hashem only wants for the rectification of his world, and he doesn't push away evil people with two hands. Ela adrab, on the contrary, mitzar from Bekor, he refines them, lihitakin v'lasis minukim mikol sig, to extract all and make them pure from any imperfections, any impurities. V'kavana zos achasi, and the intent of this is one. Yizbarach b'chol ma'asav shehu oisei imanu leheminu lahasmil u'kamoshi barnalel. Like we said, whether it's to the right or to the left, that the point of everything is that Hashem brings the rectification of the world. So when Mashiach comes, as Rabbi Vishnevsky used to say many times, we're going to have a big history lesson. We're going to start from the beginning of time. God, how could you allow all of these horrible things to happen? Look, you look through history. Jews have suffered tremendously. I was just listening to a class about the first Crusades. It's can't even describe what happened. What parents slaughtering their children, all these horrible things. Why did all this have to happen? So when Mashiach comes, we're going to get a big history lesson how even these horrible, horrible things were necessary and were really good to bring about the rectification of the world. Obviously, something very difficult for us to understand right now. And I always like the example that Rabbi Vishnevsky gave. He said, you look through a keyhole, and I'm sure many of you here have heard this many, many times, but I'll say it again. You look through a keyhole and you see a knife going into someone's head, and you say, oh my God, he's killing him, I have to save him. And you burst open the door, and you see it was a surgery, and the guy was trying to save his life by cutting open his head, and you just contaminated the surgery and killed the guy. So we're only looking now through a tiny keyhole about world events. But when Mashiach comes, Hashem's going to sit us down, Kilu, and give us a whole history lesson and explain why this had to happen, why that had to happen, and how it was all really for the good to bring about the final rectification. Okay, let's go a little further. You have to know also, all of the actions of Hashem are awesome. And they are beyond, they're infinite. As it says, how great are your actions, Hashem. And the smallest of Hashem's actions, has so much wisdom in it, we can never understand. Even Hashem's smallest action, we can never understand its depth. It's what it says, your thoughts are very deep. Now, meaning in Galus, we do not understand Hashem's actions at all. We just very basic, very surface, we have a very surface understanding of Hashem's action, a very superficial understanding. And the inside of his actions, they're hidden. We just know that all of his actions are good. We don't understand. We have faith. We know. We understand. We have a Kabbalah, a tradition, that all of Hashem's actions are good, but we don't understand how they're good, for sure. However, in the future, we're going to understand how they are good and how they were good for us in the end. But don't think, because of this, he says, don't think at the end of days, he's telling us that we're going to understand why certain things happen in Hashem's wisdom. He says, don't think you're going to understand all of Hashem's wisdom. What we're going to be able to understand is just like a drop in the ocean. Even the smallest action of Hashem is so deep that we're not going to be able to get it. Everything in that Hashem does in the schar va'onesh you have included in that this attribute of oneness, which is pushing the world to its conclusion. And within this, there's stuff that's there are actions which are going to be revealed to us in the world to come. Shnemar, as it says, Hashem will open the eyes of the blind. This is what it means. We're going to see what Hashem's thoughts were through the actions that happened, through what He did. When our eyes are opened, we're going to understand through His actions. There's still deep wisdom within these actions that we're not going to be able to understand even through the actions. So Hashem, we're going to see these actions that happen. Through those actions, we'll understand how they were good, but we're only going to be able to see from the actions. We're not going to be we will not be able to understand the depth, all of the depth of those actions. Because it comes from Hashem's exaltedness. That you can't recognize from His actions. And all of this that's happening is is based on Hashem's goodness. It's Hashem's goodness that He wants to push the world to its conclusion. And again, the conclusion and the completeness, the perfection that we're talking about is only according to our perspective, not according to God's perspective. And all of His actions are only on a level that is suitable for us. So the Ramchal is saying that there's always these two attributes that are working through the world. We have the Midas HaMishpat, Hashem, reward and punishment, and we have the Midah of Hashem who's pushing the world to its final conclusion. When Mashiach comes, we're going to understand in general how even what seems to be horrible things were necessary for the world's conclusion. We'll understand why there had to be a Holocaust, why there had to be Corona, why there had to be Crusades, why people had to suffer, why righteous people, so all those things. And we're going to understand. However, we're not going to understand the depth, the true depth and every aspect of what Hashem did, because we're not going to understand Hashem's, even the smallest action that Hashem does is contained myriads and myriads of wisdom.
And tell me if you understand it the same way. The way I'm understanding it is that in our view we will understand it fully. We're just still going to be lacking knowledge.